Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. Commissioner Edwards, are you there, sir?
Yep, I'm here.
ETA, sir?
Oh, I'm in the building. I'll be right there.
Thank you.
Okay. It is Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. It is 9:15 a.m. The session is set to go until noon today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. Commissioner Gary Edwards is walking into the room as we speak. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. And we'll start off our agenda today. County Manager, do you have?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies, I need to make a typographical correction to the agenda. On item number 2, should read meeting review of the Board of County Commissioners meeting of April 11th, not March 11th. My apologies. Thank you.
We can't go back in time.
Wish.
So we'll start off our agenda with homeless strategies update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I'm going to take a different approach to the update today. So if you recall, Thurston County became a member of the Built for Zero initiative, which is an initiative that's a nationwide effort to end homelessness for either chronically homeless adults or veterans that are experiencing homelessness, as well as the Anchor Community Initiative, which is the same type of effort, but it's statewide, and its aim is to end youth and young adult homelessness. And we're both programs are about a year and a half in, and we are making great strides. So yesterday, a group of us representing the Anchor Community Initiative and Built for Zero Initiative met with the Law and Justice Council to present on the work that we're doing and to encourage them to join our efforts in order to get the folks that are experiencing homelessness that may have involvement with criminal justice to be included in the data that we're gathering for both the youth and young adult populations and the chronically homeless population. So next up, we're meeting with school liaisons for youth and young adults. So we're just making excellent strides in data quality as well as in creating that by name list and getting really broad partnerships in ancillary systems that aren't necessarily directly connected to the homeless crisis response system. So just really excited about what that can look like as we move forward and start making tests for change that will absolutely impact our striving forward to end homelessness in our community. So just feeling really positive about that today and wanted to let you know what we're up to and give you a positive update on homelessness in our community. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Keely. Any questions for Keely? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser? No questions for me. And the RHC meeting is canceled for this Wednesday. So we'll be having a meeting in the following 2 weeks. So just wanted to give a heads up to everyone. Okay. Thank you. So next is the review of our Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of April 11th, 2023. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 agenda. Next, we have a presentation, and it's National Volunteer Month proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon we'll give the board the opportunity to declare or proclaim April the National Volunteer Month in Thurston County. I believe we have some guests. They have been invited to participate this afternoon. Maybe I can ask Jamie to give us a perspective who will be attending this afternoon.
So PHSS has reached out and has confirmed that we've got guests from the Thurston County Disaster Response Team, MRSC, Interfaith Works, Tenino Food Bank, United Way, and DART coming in, which is why you also have so many copies next to you for signature.
Thank you. And I know United Way sent an email blast to all their volunteers, letting them know about this proclamation and asking them to attend. So we might have the crew built up. I saw that go out and I was like, okay, it might be big. Any questions on that?
No questions, thanks.
So then that will conclude the presentation. We'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
Yeah, I have a couple of updates for you this afternoon. One is I'd like to provide you with information as well as to the public. The Thurston County has joined more than 100 other businesses and organizations and has been designated as Thurston Green Business. And the county will receive a certificate at the Green Business Forum. This is scheduled for this Wednesday, tomorrow, April 12th at 11 in St. Martin's University. The county received the designation recognition for its progress in the areas of transportation and commute trade reduction, solid waste and recycling, and social performance indicators. And that's what I'd like to probably highlight this afternoon. Also, I'd like to probably, for the benefit of the public, as we transition into the new website, we have been having some issues related to the master calendar, and the updates are now going through. We'll keep working on that. So there may be a little bit of off when we cancel and add meetings. But the weekly schedule is correct, is the long-term master calendar. We'll have some issues, so I will ask the public to be patient as we move forward. But again, the current meeting schedule is up to date. And also, I believe last week, and I'm not going to be highlighting this afternoon, you received public testimony related to the cash balance and some of the funds in the county. I have provided you with a copy. You have this copy in your packet. And in the back, it gives you and this report was run by the end of March 31st, 2023. And that gives you by fund, the fund balance on each of the funds that we have. And on the back page, I have highlighted two funds, is the real estate excise tax one, which has a ending fund balance as of March 31st, 2023 of $5,197,759. And the real estate excise tax two has an ending fund balance as of March 31st, 2023 of $12,083,519.32. Again, this is available to the public. We have already updated this report on the agenda setting this morning, but I will not be providing that information this afternoon. I just want to follow up with you. Any questions of that?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No.
Since you mentioned the green business thing, I see that we have an elected officials meeting and we have the chamber, at least on my calendar, and are we doing our elected officials meeting? 'Cause
We can probably discuss that. Maybe you'd like to attend this event. We can probably cancel that elected officials meeting.
I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I was just making sure, because a lot of times our elected officials meeting gets canceled for whatever reason, and I wasn't sure.
So at this
if
point,
there was a
we-
need for Thurston County to have someone at that chamber.
Rebecca certainly will be attending that. the event. Robin and myself will be attending a conference starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it will be Slim, Jennifer Buck will be covering for us while we're going. So, I know that Jeff Cadman, the treasurer, sent a note that he will not be able to attend the elected officials meeting tomorrow, and that's the only notice that I've received.
Sheriff's probably won't attend.
Yeah, he's
He's got limited
I saw
hours.
the sheriff yesterday. He's moving, I think he's limited, as the news stated, limited on the type of work that he can do, but he might be attending remotely.
I think he was told not to attend
Yeah.
anything remotely. I talked to him yesterday. They told him if he sends something, attend in person.
Okay.
It's better for his. So that's two down. Anyway,
We can cancel. So at least from my point of view, we don't have any pressing issues. It needs to be highlighted with the elected officials, but we'll cancel it. Yep.
that works for me.
okay.
And let's make sure that maybe Brandy can sign you up. Were you planning to attend the chamber's event, sir? Yep, so the chamber's event tomorrow.
Oh,
my expired coupon that I won at the last chamber, so.
Thought maybe you would get the basket or something.
I won the Amazon card.
Okay, moving on to, there's no consent agenda today, so we'll move on to department items. Item 3A and 3B is approval of the voucher list, and they're for the week of March 13th and March 20th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 3A is for you to consider approving the voucher list for the week of March 13, 2023. And that has a combined amount of $1,331,551.21. Item 3B is for the week of March 20, 2023, and the combined amount is $1,504,455.61. And this is for your consideration.
Any questions on those?
I take it both of these items have
The small amounts
expenditures for here.
related to the tenant improvements. Some, they have the ongoing costs, but so I think we're seeing a little bit of small amounts, and when I see an amount small enough, I'll give you a heads up if you like to just have it at that consent agenda. Will that work?
Certain things, I mean, are inevitable. I'm just hoping we come to the end of this pretty quick is all.
Yeah, me too. So I think the end is near.
Maybe. We still have things that are part of the pending improvements that are caught up in the supply chain. There's still technology items, we're currently installing the glass on the cubicles that we ordered months ago. It's very small things that we're finishing up, but there are still small things trickling in, and I don't know how much longer it will take.
For instance, in those two, we have payments for the plexiglass that we installed on the other's office. So that kind of items. Nothing of significance for sure, but it's something that we have already planned.
Maybe we can go over that, you and I, at a later date and see if I can't reach some kind of conclusion.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so, Commissioner Mentor, any questions? No questions for me. Item 4A from the Commissioner's Office, Associate Development Organization designation, and
Yeah, I believe you had a brief conversation last week with Jenica Machado, our Economic Development Manager. This is an item that perhaps the board exercises every 2 years. And under RCW 43.3308080, the Washington State Department of Commerce authorizes local governments to designate the Associate Development Organization, what we call the ADOs. Traditionally, the ADO designation has been given to the Economic Development Council here in Thurston County. And as you know, that has been a very successful partnership with the EDC. And I believe our recommendations for you to consider to assign the associate, designate the ADO to the Economic Development Council of Thurston County. And I believe this is going to be for the next 2 years. That will be 2023 through 2025. And Jenica is here to answer any additional questions.
Jenica Machado, Economic Development Manager. I think I would just add that in your agenda packet, I included a report from Thurston EDC that expresses their interest to maintain their historical placement. And in that report, it goes through how they meet the statutory requirements and the expectation guidelines set out for ADOs.
okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And that's a continuation that's been going on for how many years?
I think the initial designation was in 2006, if I believe.
It's been going on longer, I think it's longer
It
than
is a
that.
long-standing.
It's a long, long time.
So it has been a good partnership with the EDC, for sure.
Questions, Commissioner Mentor?
Can you remind me, since I'm not finding the paper handy, what what's the significance of that designation? What do they have to do, or what do they get to do?
So Commerce has to choose an AEO that the county designates. And that creates a relationship between that organization and commerce. And so if there's a business recruitment case, they reach out to their local AEOs who they have that relationship with.
There's some financial benefit also. The EDC access to the Department of Commerce. Without that designation, nobody can access grants the Department of Commerce would offer.
Public Works, item 5A, adopt resolution of findings and determinations for proposed Offutt Lake Management District, number 24.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the next step in this long process for you to consider passing a resolution to approve the findings and determination to establish the Offutt Lake Management District. On September 27, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners approved Resolution 16200 declaring the intent to form the Offutt Lake. And following to that intent, you held a public hearing on November 1st, 2022, where you provided public testimony, where you received testimony encouraging the majority, encouraging the board to take the next step to approve in the formation. So this is the next step in the process. I believe that if the board decides to go with this process, there is another public hearing related to the charges that will be imposed on those property owners within the boundaries of the newly formed Lake Management District, and that will be the next step as we move along. Tim?
Good morning, Commissioners. Just one point of clarification. A few interim steps. Should the board adopt this resolution today, this would put the question to a vote of the community. So we would facilitate that voting process. If the vote comes back as a simple majority, then staff would create an ordinance creating the district for the board to consider. And then we would move on with the process that the county manager just outlined as far as adopting the role of assessment. So several additional steps here. This is for all intents and purposes the last opportunity for the board to have influence, I guess, on this process per statute. Once the vote is authorized, then the opportunity to back off of creating the district becomes a little more limited. So with that, I would answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you for the clarification, Tim.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
I don't know if this is a question or not, but this is just an opportunity for the residents out there to make a decision amongst themselves if they want to create this lake management, or if they want to move forward with the creation of this lake management district. Is that right?
This is, you're correct. This is the vote that would speak to the community's intent.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 5B is a resolution for temporary closure of Black Lake Belmore Road Southwest and Black Lake Boulevard Southwest and Saffron Southwest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe this item was discussed last week with staff and Public Works. My 2 cents on the introduction of this item. This has been a long standing issue that we have been dealing with in Public Works. This particular road, crosses portions of Black Lake, and what will have been issues is on the settling of the approaches of the bridge. This project is not intended to replace the bridge. The bridge is in solid ground because it has pilings that goes to solid rock. What happens on the approaches is very soft, is very wet underneath. And over time, we have keep adding asphalt, bring it up to grade. And obviously, there is a heavy traffic, they continue to settle this. And over time, also, the additional asphalt has created, precipitated the sinking of the approaches even faster. So I think it is time, and I appreciate Public Works going through the process to find more of a permanent solution. They just keep patching the same asphalt, keep patching the same settlements. So, and as you know, that's probably the only access to portions of Black Lake. In this particular request is for you to consider closing this road for, I believe is, for 12 weeks? 12 consecutive weeks, which is from June 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2023 to finish the permanent work on the approaches. That will create a 4.5 miles detour, in which probably will add 8 minutes, a minute commute to those members who would like to use this road. So again, I know there was a lot of conversation last week, and I'm going to let Matt to answer some of the questions and perhaps engage in additional discussion with the board.
Yeah, just following up in regards to first, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt Huntsman. I'm the interim county engineer. This is Brian Meyer. He's a senior civil engineer in our design group. I wanted to follow up on some of the conversation that we had last week regarding some of the construction costs of the project. The cost of doing business in public works continues to grow. It's just with inflation and the cost of materials, our projects are getting more and more expensive, which is why we go through a very detailed prioritization process every year to prioritize what improvements we're gonna move forward. This project was prioritized specifically because of the liability that the settling of the approaches creates in terms of the safety to drivers and bicyclists. This project was included in the 2023-2028 Transportation Improvement Program, which was approved by the Board of County Commissioners last December. And I do want to emphasize, because of the complexity of the project and the difficult soil conditions out here, that's why we engaged a private consultant with geotechnical expertise to conduct the alternative analysis for the project. The project for your consideration today is the most cost-effective and efficient repair for the bridge approaches. So we can answer any more questions. Oh, I do want to follow up on the swamp mats. So Commissioner Edwards mentioned that the military utilized these to get equipment in and out of difficult areas overseas. And they do work great in the interim as a temporary measure. But over time, if, for example, out here at Black Lake, where you have 4,600 vehicles per day going through that section of roadway, they would eventually settle. But they are a great short-term measure.
Questions, Commissioner Alvarez?
4,600 vehicles per day. How does that work with the added number of vehicles on the alternative routes? So will that be doubling some of that activity, maybe more, in routes that would normally not have that traffic problem?
Sure.
So what's the deal there?
That's a good question. So we've reached out to the City of Olympia and City of Tumwater because a good portion of the detour route will be on the city roads. And we reached out to them specifically because we wanted to make sure that those roads could accommodate the additional traffic. And both agencies have agreed that those roads can handle all of the additional traffic. Probably all 4,600 vehicles won't be sent onto that specific detour. People will find other ways of getting around. But a good portion of that 4,600 probably will use the detour route.
When was the piling put in for the bridge itself?
The
Years
bridge was
ago.
constructed in, was it 91 or 92?
Yeah, it was around that timeframe.
Replaced in 92.
Correct.
It was replaced in 92? And is there a Salmon Creek issue that goes along with this time element where you're gonna be working on this? Is this having to do with any salmon disturbance, or is there a potential for money from that fund possibly?
We're not doing any in-water work or improving any of we're not replacing the bridge, so we're not doing any in-water work. So we're not providing any habitat improvements.
I guess I'm gonna look to my seatmate as far as, do we ever have a public hearing on something of this magnitude? I mean, a 2-month or so closure, or 3-month closure, it looks like possibly, right? 3?
3 months.
Do we ever have a public hearing? Because there's gonna be a lot of disruption because of this for quite a period of time. And I'm wondering about the notice process. How long do we leave signs up? How long do we let these folks know? I mean, there's gonna be some timing issues on traffic lights on both ends of this activity.
So there is a state statute that outlines the requirements for doing a temporary road closure. One is that the legislative authority needs to approve the closure. And then if we go forward and approve the closure today, then we'd be providing notice in the county news, or the Daily Olympian, which is the county newspaper. But we've also put together an extensive communication plan for this project. We've already met with the sheriff's office and emergency services. We've met with the school districts. We're going to be using social media to get the word out. So there's a lot of public notification that's gonna go along with this temporary closure.
Bunch of big electric signs and stuff.
And also when the signs goes up, the orange signs, road closure, and we have the reader signs, those will be up way in
Way
advance.
ahead.
Way ahead, so just we give the traveling public enough notice. And what you see is probably road closure from this to this, see alternate routes, so we give enough notice to that. Yeah. It has been pretty effective, that notification in the past.
We also plan on sending out mailings to the people that are most affected by this closure that we know drive over this. We're gonna send out mailings to all of them so they get a notice with what the detour is going to be. And we'll do that a few weeks ahead of time.
I'm sure you did a traffic count on the 4,600 per day. Are you trying to capture maybe the owners of vehicles or something that, and then mailing to those folks? How are you doing that?
We don't have the means to, the traffic counts is based on, have you seen those?
Yes, but I
wires
thought
acro-
maybe in
across the
today's
road?
day and age, we have.
So
technology.
we don't have a mechanism that will capture the license plates. And as a result, we go through the process of identifying where they live. We don't do that. That would require yet another legislative action for you to have a camera reading those license plates.
Okay, well, I'm struggling with the cost, but I'm gonna defer to the commissioner of the district. I'm gonna vote for that person.
What is I mean, I missed kind of what is the project? Like, how are you, what's the fix? It's not swamp mats, got that.
It's not swamp mats.
So what are we doing to fix this problem?
So in order to fix the problem, the preferred alternative includes removing 4,500 cubic yards of fill, and then driving 540 timber pilings 60 feet into the ground, and then build the roadbed back up from that point with reinforced soils.
So just expanding the pilings, obviously it wouldn't be a bridge, but expanding the foundation that's anchored by the pilings, which now is just the bridge. Things are sinking. Now it'll expand to how many feet?
It's a couple 100 feet back on both sides, because it's not just the immediate bridge approaches, it's also the road itself is sloughing.
And how much, what's the price tag that you have estimated?
The engineer's estimate.
Engineer's estimate, thank you, is $3.3 million.
I believe Commissioner Mejia went in a field visit of that.
Yeah, so last week after we had discussion, I was like, well, I wanna see this. I saw Mike's eye twitch as I was like, the bridge is sinking, right? And he was like, it's not the bridge, it's what the bridge
Just-
approaches. It's like, not the bridge, and I was like, layman terms, Mike, the bridge is sinking. But it was really good to kind of see what Matt is talking about and in terms of the road down and how the road is kind of just caving in a little bit. I thought that was really good to see. I thought the pictures didn't really quite do it justice. And then you can really, under the bridge, you can really see the big gap that it's causing. So that was pretty enlightening. But I do have a question.
Sure.
In terms of, I see that there's an RFP set for next week.
Good,
On
process.
this, on this project as well. And I guess I'm wondering why they have to be like split up. If one is moving forward, then the other piece of it is gonna be moving forward. So like, why separate them?
So it's a separate legislative action because as Matt stated, under,
But why for 2 different weeks is my, not, I understand.
for 2 different weeks, to give the board the opportunity to weigh in on this. I mean, we can probably, bring the item for you to consider going for the bidding process for the work itself this week. I mean, that really wouldn't, so perhaps it's not, what you're saying is not consecutive items that you need to consider.
Yeah.
It's not, so it was just administrative process.
Yeah, no, I did appreciate the field trip, Matt, and Jennifer and Mike. And Matt was kind enough to kind of go and dig in and actually show me what it's actually standing on. It's kind of,
The silt.
yeah, the
Yes,
silt. It's
peat
been,
bog.
And can definitely see where the guardrails have absolutely sunk. And what was interesting, and I was gonna ask you to touch on this, is that you told me that the community has known about this problem. They're very on top of it. And so I believe that there was, when we did a kind of a interim solution last time, there was a post on Nextdoor where your information was shared. So I was kind of wanting for you to share those comments
Yeah.
with the board on how engaged the
The
community
community,
around.
the community is very engaged out there. Actually, we received most of our service requests through the commissioner's office, actually. And so, last time when we were doing the repair to add more asphalt, everybody out, all the citizens know it's intuitive. You add more weight, it's just gonna settle faster. So we get a lot of questions like, why the heck are you putting more weight on this? It's just gonna sink faster and faster. And so while they appreciate that the transitions are smoother for a short amount of time, they also understand that eventually it's gonna end up where we started. So yes, last time they shared my information on the, I forget the name of the website, the Nextdoor. Yes, and I actually it was over the weekend, I actually came in and my voicemail was full. So there is a lot of interest in this project.
Next door star.
Gotta be good at something, right?
So with that being said, our commissioner's ready to move forward. I know the price is concerning to you, Commissioner Edwards.
Did you say, so, I mean, thank you for the, I mean, I've been aware of this just from driving it, I don't have the detail, I'm sure that Commissioner Mejia got if you guys were out there with me, but, this has been an issue we've been talking about since I've been on the board, so it's not something that's popping up. And the community engagement, that's good to know. The 3.3 million, what is that? You said things are skyrocketing, or what's that up from? Like, what was the low or the beginning of the estimate of this project? What are we-
So, Originally, when they did the 30%, so this was 2021, the price was, we were looking at about 1.9 million. Over 21, 22, the price of just the timber piling has doubled. And so that's what's driven this increase recently. And so that's why we came to the board last fall, I believe, and increased a bunch of the capital projects for, because of the inflation we've seen. This was one of those that we came in and asked for some additional budgeting
Budget authority.
authority to move forward with.
And if we approve this, at this, estimate, what's the consequence of that?
So depending on the bids. So right now, this is an item that you may consider authorizing the road closure. Next week, as Commissioner Mejia stated, and we'll review the agenda here in a minute, is an item for you to consider setting a public bidding, the bidding process.
Right.
So if the bids come higher than the authorized amount, that's what you're asking, then we need to have a conversation with the board.
Well, I'm just asking, I guess what I'm asking, and I've asked this before and I think I know the answer, but I just want to ask it again. I mean, if it comes in at 3.3 and we say, okay, well, gotta do that, what doesn't get funded? Like that extra 1.4 million, is, now we don't have enough money for Country Club Road, or now we don't have enough money for,
No, because when the board authorized the increases on the projects, we already outlined as part of the budget process, the 10-year financial plan. So at this point, the department is not taking the additional delta and just coming up. The plan has already been established when the board approved the TIP and the budget. So that financial plan already included those increases. So at this point, we're not gonna be reacting to find additional money somewhere else to take money from other project. No, that will not be the case because we already planned this in the fall.
I guess I answered your question, Madam Chair.
This is just to approve the temporary closure. We're not setting out on the project quite yet, so are you comfortable with this action?
Yeah, if it's been doing too much, we might have to have another discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After that, we'll review our standing items, and at 4:30, we will have a Board of Health meeting. And that will lead us to our next item on our agenda, which is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda for the meeting of April 11th, and I will pass it to the Chair of the Board of Health.
Thank you. We also have David Bain, our Director Administrator for the Board of Health. Good morning, David, and Chris Hawkins,
Good morning.
Public Health. This meeting will be called to order at 4:30. Approval of agenda, opportunity of public to address Board of Health. And we do have a proclamation at that point, Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. Chris?
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Hawkins here, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Program Manager on Education and Prevention. And you had some review of this particular proclamation last week. We made some adjustments to the proclamation as a result of the comments about fentanyl, and we're prepared to have your consideration of this proclamation alongside some community partners who are planning to attend. We have a couple of members of the Tumwater Hopes Coalition, Council Member Angela Jefferson from City of Tumwater, and Shelley Willis from Family Education and Support Services, and then from the Bucota Tenino Healthy Action Team, we are expecting Rand Hodgson, the principal of the middle school in Tenino, to attend, as these coalitions have made this effort around promoting proper storage and disposal of prescription medications part of their annual action plans, and have done events in recognition of the Prescription Drug Take-Back Day in previous years, and have a few comments about their involvement in this as a proven strategy for reducing and preventing youth substance use and opioid use in general.
And this, I believe, is one of our strategies in our opioid response plan.
Yes.
Any questions from board members? Board Member Edwards.
Does the city of Olympia participate by having a location for this drug take-back process?
Yes, they do. Olympia's police department hosts a prescription medication drop box at their downtown office location for the public to use during their open hours, which I believe runs from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. now.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? No. To remind board members, we'll do there's plenty of whereases and we'll go down the line and each read a whereas. So if we can all make sure we all have copies of that for each board member. And then just on the next to last whereas, there's an indentation.
Oh.
Just a formatting thing, just to make it look cleaner. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you. See you this afternoon.
Next item will be item 4, which is a legislative update, and David Bain, Public Health and Social Services Director, to present that.
Yeah, good morning. The chair and I have talked about this. We're looking at least 2 updates. One will be on the nurse staffing ratio bill, which I believe is Senate Bill 5236. The other was some interest in more of an appropriations about our Medicaid rates, particularly when it comes to long-term care facilities. I believe there's some funding being moved to the legislature on that point, and I want to give the board an update. And it's a topic of interest given our healthcare constraints. Those are the 2 items.
County Manager, guys.
Hey, David, are you planning to go a little more in detail on those bills and perhaps the consequences to the county, or just the way you're?
But both. So the idea was to sort of kind of show folks where we're at. Obviously, we're kind of late in the process, and both of the things have seen a lot of changes. So it's sort of a in the moment where we're at with those things, and then the possible implications for our county would be the other piece of the puzzle.
These are 2 items that have come up either before the Board of Health or before the Board of County Commissioners, and specifically, we obviously got I think at both councils got the public comment from the nurses about staffing ratios, and then what that bill looked like, if we did to report back. And the second issue was when we had our CEOs from the hospitals talking about Medicaid rates and what's the legislature doing there, I thought would be useful. Any questions on that? Okay, next item is item 5, Board of Health Fiscal Subcommittee.
Yeah, again, we've discussed this, I guess, a couple times now. And last week, the chair sort of brought before the board the idea of having a subcommittee focused on our fiscal affairs. I believe we've seen 2 of the new board members actually respond that they are interested. And so let's hope they keep that commitment tonight. I'll hold them to it publicly, and we can get that moving.
It's actually 3. I've gotten confirmation from Lynn
Oh, yay.
Nelson, Dr. Harvey, and Maria Williams that they all 3 wanted to serve on the subcommittee.
That's awesome. Okay.
That's good news. Questions on that, board members? No. Okay, so that could be a pretty straightforward item then, and then we'll just move to item 6, which is Nisqually Reach Septic Operation and Maintenance Program Renewal.
Yeah, we've got Art here.
Good morning, I'm Art Starry, the Environmental Health Division Director. And this is, we talked about this briefly last week, but this is, as you know, we have a special septic system monitoring and maintenance program in the Nisqually Reach area. It's modeled after the one in Henderson Inlet. It's a very successful program. However, the ordinances that implemented the program about 10 years ago have a sunset date in them, and the program expires at the end of this year unless both the Board of Health and the Board of Commissioners take action to reinstate them. And so at the end of December, we talked to the Board of Health about this and told them told you as the Board of Health that we were starting to work on a proposal to reinstate the program. And so we've been working on that. And what this presentation will be today is to just give you an update on the work that we're doing so that you're aware of the program and the kind of a couple of options that we're looking at. And then and we wanted, again, you to be aware of this before we start conducting outreach with the public, because our plan is to be able to come back to you later this, actually be this summer, with a more specific proposal so we can go about going through the public process, if you agree, to reinstate the program and update the budget and all that other sort of work that's necessary to reinstate the program. So this is largely to provide information to the board, answer questions, and then set the stage for our public outreach process.
So no decision will be sought from the Board of Health.
No, if there's questions or if the board has some recommendations based on the presentation, we're certainly happy to take those, but there's no formal decision needed today.
Questions from board members? Go ahead.
Is there a connection with our ability to obtain ecology grants or other grants as we move forward with having this? We're kind of a showcase for the state, aren't we, on doing pretty good work on this particular issue?
Yeah, I think in different meetings, the state and other stakeholders and other folks who have an interest in these sorts of things have said that this is both the Henderson program and the Nisqually program are good programs. Sometimes they're referred to as models. And so I think when we have grant opportunities, when we show that we're taking active interest in taking steps to protect and preserve our water resources and public health, that the granting agencies look favorably upon that. So I think this does help to get around to answering your question. Yes, I think it helps us when we submit grant proposals.
Thank you.
It's just maybe a suggestion for time management. This is an 18-slide presentation, and I believe we've received another update that includes close to 30 slides. So I may suggest to probably keep the presentation to 20 minutes, so allows the board members to have ample time to ask questions. That will be my suggestion.
Okay, so thank you. I'll work with Jane Montre-Vanning. She'll be our key presenter on this because she's the program lead. So I'll ask her to be concise.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the
Thank you.
health officer's report from Dr. Abdul-Malik. And anything you want to conclude with, David?
Yeah, I think we'll do a kind of a joint. It'll be her and I both giving a quick report. I wanted to give a quick update. We met with Sheriff Sanders and the jail leadership team last week to talk about the COVID protocols for the jail, and I wanted to make sure folks had just a quick update on that conversation. It was productive. Had a good time.
Questions? Yeah, County Manager.
David, would it be possible for you to provide an update on the pop-up process? A month ago on the last Board of Health meeting, the Board of Health approved, moving forward with a new process. And I think last week we had a couple of feedback that perhaps that has not been in place. I think it will be great to bring an update on that process, where we are, just for the Board of Health members to understand the status of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not shocked at all by that request. I think that'll be great to have an update.
I was gonna come find you after break, David. I guess the county.
I could feel the heat.
Well, it's also good for the Board of Health generally to hear that the issues that they're considering, decisions they're making are having real consequences out in the community. It's not abstract. Okay, thank you. That'll be it for Board of Health this afternoon, and hopefully we can keep it to a 90-minute-ish target as we try to target each one.
Will do. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so going back to the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of April 18th, 2023. So we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Isn't he
Yeah, I
doing it
got
this week?
You got today's one?
Yeah, maybe change that, yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner-
maybe, Commissioner Woods. Yeah.
Approval of the Tuesday, April 18th agenda. Moving on, we have a presentation and it's Earth Day proclamation.
Yeah, this is great for you commissioners to proclaim April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day in Thurston County. We have been engaging with committee members. Mr. Bob Barnes is organizing, I believe, students from elementary school to come and be part of the celebration. That's always a great way to see young faces with smiles before the board. Unfortunately, I don't think Mr. Rock Monroe will be in attendance. I think he's dealing with some medical issues, so he will certainly be missed. And if that is the case, but certainly Bob Barnes will bring that sense of the school children being present.
Believe he's coordinating students from Marshall Middle School. They plan on coming in and talking about the projects that they've been doing at the Copper Crest logging site, restocking of the native plant nursery for their campus restoration. The CSI program has accomplishments that they've been doing with the Green Cove Creek watershed. So they're gonna hopefully have something, presentation, pictures, whatever they put together. We'll go ahead and get distributed for you beforehand to review.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Is that gonna be a long presentation?
I don't think it'll be too long. I think last year they were about 10 minutes or so.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser? Next is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I will follow up with any events that needs to be followed based on the public testimony you received this afternoon.
Department items, no consent agenda again. Item 3A is approval of the voucher list for the week of March 27th.
For your consideration, Commissioners, this is the voucher list for March 27, 2023 for a combined amount of $3,794,575.24. I did check this voucher list, and it does include payments for furniture. They're still paying on that, and it's not. It is probably I think it's $25,000. They're still paying for furniture on this voucher list, but don't quote me that number. But it's still some items on that. That's the only item related to the HM.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
I looked at you and I just, questions, Commissioner Menser? I have a question about this. So,
The voucher list?
not the voucher
Oh,
list.
I'm sorry.
I skipped ahead, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, central services. Item 4A, I was looking at the lease amendment extension with J4 Associates.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is for your consideration to extend the current lease that we have on a building located at 7721 New Market Street, where the sheriff's office is currently occupied. This particular lease is requesting to extend it for one more year to May 31st, 2024. The intent of this lease really is to give us the time to work on a potential upgrades of this facility. And moving on into 2024, hopefully the upgrades of that facility and the improvements associated with that will be embedded into the new lease beyond 2024, May 31st. So this is really an extension. You may recall last year, you also extended for 1 year, thinking that we may be in that position to do the same. Unfortunately, we continue to work on that. And this is all related to, the courthouse improvement projects that we have going. So this really is gonna give us another 12 months in a way to start working with the building owner to work on the potential tenant improvements and enhancement of that facility that eventually will be part of the new lease agreements moving forward beyond May 31st, 2024. Richard King, the capital project manager, is here to add additional information, answer any questions.
Anything you'd like to add, Richard?
I think county manager gave a great description of it. It is really just to give us more time since the previous product manager that was handling leases left the county. So since I'm taking over, I'm trying to make sure that we have everything lined out so that we can get this taken care of and we can get into a long lease with the landlord.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
When we reach the conclusion of the lease, are we planning on doing something to continue staying there, or, so that's, I'm trying to figure out, if we're gonna stay there anyway, how come we aren't given a little longer term?
So because it is the, I believe the intent of the sheriff's office is when we move in portions of the sheriff's office out of building 3 in the courthouse campus, there is, right there is located the evidence room, for instance. And the evidence room will not be able, doesn't make sense to remain in that building at the courthouse. We need to move the evidence room into this new facility. This facility, the new market already has a nice space for evidence related to other matters the sheriff conducts, so we need to enhance that. And also, I believe there is an opportunity to enhance the offices of the sheriff's office in that location. So that is really the additional time that we ask on this additional lease of 1 year to let us work through that process as to what additional improvements we need to do with the owner of the building for this upcoming year. Did I answer your question, sir?
Okay, thank you.
So if I am understanding right, this extension is for how long? For a year? And this is for Richard to kind of catch up with kind of what was being negotiated before. Also having, I guess, a new sheriff, different priorities, different. Yeah. Then that way will give you a chance to kind of come to a term where we can then sign a long-term lease. What's the cost of just doing it for 1 year?
The cost is, I believe is the same, is $16,157 per month. And that has not changed, it continues to be the same.
Okay.
So the property owner has been pretty diligent on that.
And this is already, we had budgeted for this is not gonna be something new, and it's coming out of general fund,
Yeah.
general fund expense. Okay.
So maybe a good point, the plan that we have is for this facility to expand is not to bring all the presence that the sheriff's office has in building 3. It's just a portion of that. Because the plan on the courthouse improvement projects is some will be going to building 5. So the plan is not to bring all the sheriff's office to this location. Because the tenant improvements will be significant and the cost will be significant to accommodate that. So this is just to bring portions of that to the new market. Just want to clarify that.
Have we got a plan for, have we come up with a, I don't know, have we accepted a plan, or we're getting close? What are we gonna do with it, with the jail that we can't use, can't seem to use the space for anything?
For the FJC? Or the
No, at the courthouse,
So, that's,
come up with a solution on that, yeah?
I think it's really about
It's a headache.
dollars and cents. Touching that facility, it requires a lot of money. Yeah, I think at some point, we really need to be holistic, but really the constraint that we have is we don't have any financial backing to do anything with the old jail.
The guy that remodeled that building should be looked into.
We did.
Okay.
Is probation still operating out of there?
At this time, they are, but they won't be after the remodel.
Right, right.
They'll move back up onto the main floor
Yeah.
with everyone else. They say it creates a disconnect that's not an efficient work, having them in the old jail.
What about storage and things like that?
We're using quite a few of the cells as storage area. We're about to, when facilities moves out of their current building, we're going to move all of county surplus into the old jail space. That's exactly what we're using a lot of it for. And then, one of the alternatives when we got the initial pre-design work on the courthouse renovation, they provided an estimate of what it would take to just knock the stacks, they call them the stacks, to knock that part down, because it's not usable, and to remodel it into something that is usable would cost us a lot more than just knocking it down. Knocking it down would actually create better space for the rest of the building. Even just knocking it down costs millions of dollars.
Hoping it happens in my lifetime.
It doesn't look this like out like you're very young, Commissioner.
Constantly looking for ways to use that space.
They do have to use, like, somebody's in trial though, right? They do have to have a couple cells that are available.
Sally Port still.
They do use the Sally Port and the day holding. Yes, there is a space that continues to be used by the sheriff for that purpose.
And they also have holding cells in the actual, like in the floors too. They have two holding cells.
Right, when you move people up preparing to go to court.
And that's a huge security risk for sure. Okay.
Moving on to item 4B, lease amendment extension with BW Extension.
Similar to the previous items, a little bit of a bridge, in this case to extend the lease of the building that we have at 2500 Mudman Road. With facilities is using that particular facility, and this extension is to get us up to, January 5th, 2024, with the intent of giving us some time to move those operations to the Mudman complex that we purchased. It's just, there's a lot of little small logistical elements that we need to do. The property owner has been willing to extend this lease to give us time to have a logical transition to what we hope to be the permanent location for facilities in the Mudman complex the county owns.
This extension is only for a few months, but that's all the landlord was willing to give us, so we're feeling fortunate to even get this.
And the lease is for $8,500 a month.
So this is the building at 2500 that facilities is currently located in, and they will move into the building.
Oh, I see, it's where they.
At Mottman,
okay,
yeah.
I've been there.
So part of the overall plan for Mottman, ballot processing center in all of one building, voter registration in half of another building. The remaining half of that building will be used for the records center, which will move out of lease space, and then facilities in the third building, including storage and fabrication bay for facilities. And then the storage area in that third building would be an opportunity if there's anything else that the board should want to put in that space.
Anything to add? I'm sorry.
I have concerns on timeline, and the reason of my concerns is we've had such issues with the remodeling of Mottman and the cost of them, and so this puts us on another tight deadline, and I'm looking at you, Robin, to see, is this something that we will be able to achieve and have that building, that third building ready for facilities to move in by this date?
Yes. So we've known that this landlord was not willing to extend this lease for at least 3 years. So we've been planning to be out of this building. And in moving to Monmouth, we have to move somewhere. The landlord is not willing to extend any more than this. So, facilities is able to move into the space that they will be occupying at no cost, and they'll do their own work. So they'll move the furniture and equipment they currently have, they don't need anything new. The space, they will make the space available work the way it is, they don't need to remodel. Any type of renovation or remodel work that they do need, the facility staff will do themselves as a training opportunity for the staff. So there is no cost to moving facilities into the space that they will occupy.
Didn't you do the same thing at the location that you're at?
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, we
You
did.
did a super good job.
Yes, thank you. They did excellent work.
And then will building 3 be empty by that point, or are there still people in there?
Their, the space the facilities will move into, I think becomes, I wanna say it becomes vacant in July, but I'm not, I'd have to look at the plan again, so don't.
But I think all the
quote me on that.
leases, the amendment ends at this year. I think the last one was the conservation district. It's in December.
No, there's a few others that are still
Beyond that?
through the end
Okay.
of this year and
That's what I
a
meant.
couple into next year. But we've got current tenants in Mottman moving out in, one just decided to move out early, so they're on their way out. There's businesses moving out at the end of July. I think there's one that moves out in October. They're slowly vacating the space, but I think that the space that facilities moves into, at least at first, they can make a smaller space work for their staff while they wait for the other tenant to move, so they'll, as soon as the space is available, and I think if that's July, they'll,
We'll start moving.
Yep.
Okay.
they'll move their stuff, they'll move their own stuff, that will be a no-cost move, and we're looking at if moving the record center into the second half of the building that they'll share with voter registration, if that can also be a no-cost move.
And then can we add just for the description here, move to approve maybe something that says it's for a facility somewhere on here? Because just reading this, we don't know who the building is really for, so just
Sure.
clearing it up that it's for facilities and. Okay. Moving on to information technology, item 5A, and the renewal of annual maintenance for Munis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to our new IT Director, Ms. Sherry Ill. Congratulations. Happy for you to take in the helm of the IT department for Thurston County. This item for your consideration, Commissioners, is to consider approving the continuing maintenance of the Munis system. The Munis system is the day-to-day application the county uses for financials, accounts payable, receivables, general ledger, and asset tracking. This is already included on the IT budget, but requires a board action to go ahead and approve this fees. This is for a 2-year term and has an amount of $302,669.42. Sherry?
The reason we're asking for up to 2 years is because we're not sure how long Munis will be around. So just so we don't have to bug you guys again.
Is perhaps what you're stating is that the ERP will eventually replace Munis, is that intent? So, and since we continue to use the Munis system, and the implementation of the ERP is facing a little bit of a delay, we just want to make sure that we have enough support for Munis while we go through the transition of the ERP.
Sure how to work.
So that's gonna be $150,000 a year?
No, that's the annual cost.
That's the annual cost.
So it's gonna be 300 per year for 2 years? That's just kind of blackmail, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how, no way out of, this has been hanging fire for so long. So it's another 600,000.
Potentially.
Okay, I guess I wish I had a better understanding of it. I could ask better questions.
Is it fair to say that perhaps hopefully we only utilize for a year, in a year we'll replace the year with the ERP, so we don't need the second? Do we have an option on that, or we are committed to the 2 years?
Well, we're not committing to a 2-year. I'm just getting the approval to pay for 2 years, just in case we need it. But there's a lot of data in Munis that we need to figure out what to do with even after the ERP goes live. We've been looking forward to data warehouse of some sort to move that data into it. We've been working on that also since we knew that Munis was going away. So ideally, we'll only have to pay for it 1 more year. That's the hope.
But that depends on whether or not we can get the other up and running and everything, right? And doesn't that depend on kind of some of their operations, whether they can get it all together? I mean, it isn't.
That's correct, yes.
Commissioner Edwards, I don't know the right questions to ask, but sounds like we're kind of stuck.
We need to maintain the financial data.
If I may, I really feel, what
Feel
you're
okay?
stating, it's just, there's no options, and that's what, I think where we are is, we have been utilizing the system is essential to our business, and that really is no options. We're just, I don't want to use whole hostage score, but in a way, that's probably what I'm.
Is our e-verification or whatever we're doing, is that hinging on this as well? On looking at
The permitting?
the permitting?
No, that's a different application.
Process, is that done? Is that kind of,
The
I thought it was hanging up a little bit.
The consultant is already working on that, on the replacement of that. So that's a different application.
But not quite complete yet.
They kicked off that project in February and it had 1 year project date, yeah. So February of 2024.
We got the permitting system, we've got ERP, and don't we have a huge thing with the sheriff's office?
Needham's, we're busy. Yes.
That's that regional approach with the sheriff's office, the replacement. Oh, sorry.
I feel the same way. Especially because the ERP program has been absolutely so expensive and it's been delayed for so long. And then now having to kind of pay 300,000 a year, it's painful. It really is. I'm hoping. I guess my suggestion is gonna be for, instead of the 2 years, for 1 year. At least if it has to come back to renew, at least we get an update of what's going on, right? And if it doesn't need to come back, then that point, it's great. But if it's 1 year, then at least the board gets an update on, if there are further delays and if there's issues with transferring the data. At least we kind of
That's a good suggestion.
get a.
I don't think there's any contractual issues, which is what
No,
we,
no, not at all.
that's a good suggestion for the board to consider.
That's okay with the board.
Yeah, and maybe for the public too, we should point out that this is not our new director's problem. She's just bringing us the information that, I don't want her to start off on a bad, so to speak.
So with the concurrence of the board, we'll change this to 1 year.
Absolutely.
So after a year, we can say, oh, we don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need to pay another 300,000. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
If this comes back next year, the other two new commissioners will have the same heavy set.
Just like, oh. Okay, Public Works, and this is the, item 6A is contract award for purchasing and planting trees as mitigation for the Marvin Road upgrade project. And it's a CP number 61478.
Yeah, the board may recall having a conversation of this item. And it's related to the mitigation of the improvements that we're planning to do on Marvin Road, phases 1 and 2 from 22nd Avenue to Union Mills. And as part of the process, the Oregon white oak is a habitat for the western gray squirrel, and the improvements will affect the current Oregon white oak trees that we have within the project boundaries. So the way we go about, and the board authorized to go out for a bidding process to secure the services of an outfit that can provide up to 60 Oregon white oak trees, and those are the ones that we need. And that will be probably, the bidding process was, the bid was open March 23rd, 2023. We only received 2 bids, and the outfit they became with the low bidder was the Advanced Environmental Incorporated from Olympia, Washington, on the amount of $85,050. And the department is asking for you to authorize issuing the contract to this vendor with a total of $93,555, which includes an additional 10% for any unforeseen overruns in the cost. I'll be more than happy to give you a great history on the western gray squirrel, the eastern gray squirrel, and why the Oregon white oak become the habitat for the western gray squirrel.
Questions?
Isn't this, there's a heck of a good Oregon white oak stand right there where we're doing this. I don't understand why we got stuck, so.
Because with the footprint of the improvements, we'll take the streets down.
Some of those.
Yeah, the last some is we need to replace them. That's part of the mitigation.
And out of budget, road budget or something?
Yeah, that's part of the road fund.
Did we get some grant money to help on that project from the state?
For the actual road improvements?
Yeah.
Ryan is here in the public works staff. Do we have a TIB grant for this one?
Yes.
Transportation Improvement Board? Yeah.
Yes, for the overall project, yes. And this contract for the oak tree mitigation is separate from that roadway corridor improvement contract that the TIB grant is for, if that makes sense. So the overall road construction will be on will be advertised for bids later this year, and this contract was to get a jump on growing the trees for planting in 2 years.
Actually,
Sorry, I didn't hear that question if that was directed at me.
I'm just asking, where will the trees be planted?
Where?
Where?
They will be planted, excuse me, in the stormwater collection pond immediately adjacent on the west, excuse me, on the east side of our roadway improvements. There is an exhibit, I believe, attached to this item that should show exactly where, but they're all going to be around a stormwater pond and in an area that the trees, the Oregon white oak trees that we're removing previously were.
I do. White oak doesn't do very good with their feet wet. What's the deal?
I'm sorry, what?
Good question. So they won't be inside the pond area. They'll be around.
In the
Yep.
perimeter.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. Yes. Thank you.
Perfect Park is the one in Boston Harbor, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So I know that the residents there have been, as trees have been taken down by the ivies. I know there's kind of some open spaces, and I know residents have been asking for Public Works to kind of plant more trees in that area. So I'm wondering, in those spaces, can we kill two birds with one stone?
I like that.
I think we have to be looking, because this is strictly a mitigation project, because we take a sensitive area out as a result of the project, and we have to replace it in kind. What are you suggesting is we go for replanting strategies at the Barefoot Park? I don't think we can extend buying trees to plant. I don't know if we can do that, because there is not a road project associated with the Barefoot Park to plant the trees.
If it's for mitigation and that area is a protected area, right? I'm just wondering why it wouldn't kind of, I see Matt coming over here to shut down my idea.
Probably the worst idea is for me to play biologist in front of the Board of County Commissioners, but it's my understanding that you're supposed to mitigate in the same area of the habitat that you're disturbing. So they would like us to stay within the vicinity of the Marvin Road corridor. And then I understand what you were saying about putting some trees over here, putting some trees over here, and kind of spreading them out. The problem is that they like to, when it comes to oak trees, they like to put them in groves, because a grove of oak trees is better than a single oak tree here, over here, over here. They like oak tree forests, I guess. That's as good as I can, that's as good as I got right there.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, moving forward with item 6B, which is rights-of-way vacation of portions and the plat of Railroad addition to Rochester and James Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a map in front of you that I shared on the proposed vacation. It's right here, sir. And this is a plat that was established back in June 22nd, 1891. And there has been a petition from the nearby property owners to vacate portions of this plat. The hearing examiners held a public hearing on May 11, 2021, which determined that it's not a public use and the vacation process can continue. At this point there is not a need for a public use. As you may recall, the next step in the process, if you consider approving this resolution to vacate this property, the next step will be for those individuals who are taking this property on their private custody, they will have to pay for it. And that will be the next step in the process before any vacation can be finalized. Craig?
Craig Sisson, Real Estate Services Manager with Public Works. I'm here to answer any questions. We did receive compensation for this. This is for the final resolution,
Oh, this is the final, how much we got?
$5,260.
Who paid for the surveying cost on that? Did we?
So initially in 1891, when it was platted, that was the original survey, replatted in 1911. And then for the current use, that would be for the applicant would have paid for survey work, done any survey work after the original plats.
Good, thank you.
What does the Weaver refer to? Is it Weaver Road or Weaver's applicant?
Is it Larry Weaver's the applicant for this?
And all of these different pieces are, adjacent pieces are owned by him?
So there were easements that had to be provided. There's a family partnership that there was an easement laid down over the top of this. Was one of the conditions. So there were 3 conditions for the approval of this. One was the compensation is set forth. The other one, the Weaver had to provide the DeGee's family partnership, their heirs and assigns an easement over an existing private road that had been built. That has been met. That was in February. And then a Rochester Water Association easement was also added. And that is contained in the final resolution.
I'm confused on this one, I'll be honest, So they went through a hearings examiner process
Mhm.
to basically purchase these pieces of land or easements or rights of way.
They pay for the road vacation process, and part of the vacation process under Thurston County Code requires payment if the plats are newer and there's an 1800 date. So if they're prior to that, there's no compensation involved. If past that date, which these are, both of these plats were after that, that there is compensation involved. If there are private ownerships, then the easements are recorded. So there's a long process that these all have to go through. And what they pay for is the vacation. Exterminating the rights of the county is basically what they're doing. And that's the addition of those platted alleyways or roads to their then private ownership.
We don't have to take down any trees anymore.
That is correct.
Yeah, any dangerous trees are now on there.
Yeah, or potholes.
Yeah, if the board did not release the county's interest, what would the county potentially do with these small bits of property?
So these are unopened right of ways. So the county would be still liable for maintaining those, including the trees. We could open the roads if we so chose to. That would require engineering, construction of the roads, a significant investment in the area to serve a small handful of properties. So if the board does not approve this request, it could be either left as unopened or they could open up the right of way.
But these particular bits are not in places where the county would find it advantageous to create roads. Would you say that's a fair statement?
That's beyond fair. That's why we are recommending the approval of the road vacation, because these are something that we don't anticipate.
They're not something that we would probably ever use.
Correct.
That is really one of the underlying, a part of the public hearing, the hearing examiners determined to see if there is a public need. And there really is not a public need to open this. And maybe to answer your question in a different way, well, the county will do it, the board doesn't approve this, is what the county has done since 1891, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. That is correct. And the hearings examiner process is a very thorough process. There's a large staff report that goes through that we do look at the applicant information that's provided and our anticipated needs. And as the county manager stated, since 1891, we haven't had a need for this, and we don't anticipate a need in the future.
I guess what I'm confused about is we've done a handful of these, like Boston Harbor and a few other places, and I don't remember any discussion of a hearing examiner process. So they always go through that process, or we just never discussed it?
As part of my presentation, I do give you the date in which the hearing examiners had the public hearing. And every single vacation.
So every time we had one of these, it was already reviewed by the hearing examiner to determine no public need for the road?
That was one of the first steps.
Okay, I don't recall the problem with that. I thought that's what we were supposed to figure out. Well, good, that makes it even easier, I guess, for us.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item C, and this is kind of continuing the conversation on Lake Belmore, Black Lake Belmore Road Bridge Approach Repair. And this is the call for
Call for bids and the great discussion when you review the agenda for this afternoon related to this particular project. This is the next step. Is where the department will go with a call for bids to secure the services of a contractor to do the work. And the result of that bidding process will be to bring back another AIS, another item for the board to consider awarding the contract based on the low bid.
questions on this item.
I guess the only thing I'd ask, is there any reason that you'd want to put it on for today? Being it's the same thing or something, does it matter? Does it help you or hinder?
Doesn't matter to us.
Doesn't matter to you.
Okay, thank you. And then at 3:30, we do have a public hearing, and it is a public hearing for assessment of fair housing and consolidated plan needs analysis.
Yeah, and for your consideration, Madam Chair and Commissioners, you have two action items after you receive public testimony. One is to close the public hearing, and the other item, depending on the public testimony you might receive this next Tuesday, will be to approve the assessment of fair housing and authorize the department to report. Those are two actions for your consideration at the next public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, anything you'd like to add?
No, I will let you know that I will have a 15-minute or so presentation to provide the background on the results of the assessment of fair housing and the consolidated plan needs analysis. So I will have providing PowerPoint presentation to you later this week to Jamie. So there will be I'll try to keep it not too long, but it will be a good 15-minute presentation or so.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menson? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that will conclude our agenda for April 18th. It's 10:47. Let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll be back. We are back from break. It is 11:10 and we left off with proclamations and awards and advisory reports and questions.
Good morning. Good morning, Jamie Caldwell, Clerk of the Board. For proclamations outside of what was already reviewed, I don't have any further updates. For boards and commissions, the standing applications have been included for your review. The Black Lake Special District will be meeting on the 17th to review the additional application they received. And the Agricultural Advisory Committee will be meeting on the 20th to review the student application. Both plan to provide an appointment recommendation after they review. I did receive one reappointment request for the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, and they are recommending reappointment as requested. Outside of any questions, that's all I have.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards? Commissioner Munster?
Question is, okay, so, Storm and Surface Water, District 2. So no other applications, just, and one vacancy, but this is one of my District 3 people, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, yeah. So it wouldn't, I don't believe it would end up filling that additional vacancy that we have for District 2 there. It would just be to reappoint for the one that's already seated.
You still have an opening on that one, right?
Yes.
When is the appointment like expire for Mr. Net?
Let me grab that real quick. I think it was on, let me see here. June 1st of 23, so they're trying to get it taken care of before the expiration.
Okay. We have a little bit of time. I mean, I'm good with Mr. Netter. He's been very active. He actually contacted me about encouraging us to recruit for some of the spots, so. But, you know, given that it hasn't even, just in case somebody else wanted to apply, but I'd be perfectly comfortable reappointing.
I think we're gonna have one other application because there's an opening, another
For
opening.
District 2?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we'll wait, we'll hold fire to look on that. Okay, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. After about a 6-month hiatus due to staffing, I'm excited to announce the Friday 5 is back this week. It will be released on Friday morning to the more than 900 subscribers and posted to our social media. We'll also be sending out our first quarter internal newsletter, The Insider, either this week or next week. I want to thank our new public information specialist, Anna Rhodes, on taking these on and getting them ready for relaunch. We're also working on getting our different PIO comms groups, both internal and external, back together to continue work on better communications coordination across the county. So there will be more updates coming on that soon. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions?
Apparently there were some bugaboos on the new website when it first opened. Did we get everything fixed? I don't know what they are. I've just heard that there were a couple issues.
It was a very large project, a large website redesign. So there's going to be some little glitches. We're going through that. All of the web coordinators from each of the offices and departments are continuing to go through their new content. We're working through that, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions? No questions. Thank you. Next is legislative update.
I have the report before you. I'm not going to go through that, or other than just start highlighting what bills have been signed by the governor. And the one that I have for you, for those bills who have been tracked, is on page 3. The last one is the Substitute Senate Bill 5627. This is related to the salary commission and this is aligned to the 5 commissioners that has been signed by the governor. So good deal, good process. I appreciate Commissioner Mejia testifying in this bill on a couple of occasions. So that is the common law, and that will be perfect when the 5 commissioners will come next year. Also, there's a couple of items for you consideration. Senate Bill 5536, and this is related to the Blake issue. And there has been a request from WASAC to send a letter of support to include some of the amendments to this particular bill. I believe those amendments are on point. So with your concurrence, I will draft a letter and send to the local legislators related to the 5536 bill. And this related to the substance abuse. It deals with the navigators, the LEAD program. I think in tandem with the Washington State Association of Counties and the LSE, and Madam Chair can further explain this, I would recommend for us to draft a letter. I will work with Katie, and I will add your e-signatures just to make sure we send that letter today.
Yeah, and so this was a request that got sent to LSC members, and looking at it, I thought it was quite a tandem of kind of what we've been doing, we're working on, and aligns quite well. So I was hoping that the full board could sign a letter and send it to all of our legislators in Thurston County, kind of, just because we've had so many issues with Blake in the past, and especially in terms of funding. AOC now has a clear method on how to do things, and they have the staffing capacity for it, so I think it's just a good avenue.
So maybe I can ask, maybe I can read what WASAC is requesting in the letter. It says, in addition to the fixes of Section 26 of this bill, we would like to amend the bill to include the WSIPP, that's the navigators, study that will evaluate the effectiveness of LEAD in comparison with other voluntary diversion programs, for example, drug courts. If the state is going to continue to invest a substantial amount of money into one program, it should be determined whether this program is ineffective or impactful as other available community-based programs. While LEAD is tied to us being evidence-based and effective, it was largely developed in very urban areas, and there's little or no data as to the effectiveness of LEAD in more of the rural areas of the state. Therefore, we're simply asking that the state plans to prioritize LEAD programs, then the state should also take a look at its impact and performance as compared with other programs. That is the request that should go in the letter.
Why would we sign that? We're one of the urban counties that has taken lead on and implemented it. It sounds like something that should, I don't object to that, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna mean much coming from us when we're a lead county.
But I think it's just participating on the effort that Washington State Association of Counties, WASAC, to have a comprehensive LEAD program that includes the rural areas, rural counties.
And so kind of the discussion with what it's been, right? It's been a huge focus on LEAD from the legislator, which is not bad. It's great, right? But then, it's just trying to make sure that our treatment courts also don't get left behind on this, especially since some of them are having great results as well. And so I think that's the point that WASAC is trying to put through as, LEAD is great and it's working, but, of course, not every county can have it. But I think there needs to be a more holistic approach on how this is all handled, especially as many of our treatment courts are doing a great job as well.
Maybe to follow up on Commissioner Mentzer's comment, do we want to refer in that letter that we are doing it and the success of the same? I don't know. Being it's coming from us as three commissioners versus three commissioners that might not have that program in place. Is it worth mentioning that we're doing it and it's working? That's all I.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe, have everybody of the letter this and concluding from Thurston County perspectives as an organization who has already implemented LEAD, we see the benefits of it. Is that right?
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
And LEAD is, LEAD is one piece, but it's part of a larger group.
Bigger
sort of
picture.
these crisis response, and we just had a presentation this morning at Innovative Justice meeting from the Lacey Mobile Outreach Team and about all their successes. And now they want to try to better coordinate with our scout team for Thurston County and the crew team for Olympia, because they're all kind of operating separately. And so, like, this approach in Thurston County is expanding, right? The sheriff just launched his program in December. Lacey's out touting its successes this morning. And they actually, their goals for the future are to expand to 24/7. You know, they want to expand their program, not contract. So, I mean, I think we could at least say, whether it's LEAD or something like LEAD, that we've seen great success in Thurston County in, you know, these sort of crisis response approaches to you know, what were formerly criminal justice referrals with respect to substance abuse disorder and mental health, you know, challenges. But, you know, then we can segue and support what WASAC is saying, but, you know, we do support the request of rural counties to assess, you know, what works best for, it may not be a one size fits all, you know. I don't know, I'm trying to kind of take what Commissioner Edwards said.
Maybe we can conclude on that, stating that the request from WASAC is complementary.
Yeah.
Because that's really what they're asking is to introduce an amendment to analyze the data. In essence, that's.
I don't have a problem with that, really. Do we want to add in there that,
I don't know what you want to call it, the obvious success, but one of the successes, because jail issues are a big issue right now for the state, that this seems to have helped with jail population. And because you mentioned the criminal justice component of it, you know, because I don't know, is that worth mentioning, that that's a spin-off benefit or anything? I don't know.
I mean, I guess what I'm struggling with is that, you know, Thurston County, if you get outside of the incorporated areas, is a pretty rural county. And our sheriff's office is responsible for those areas. And it was Sheriff Snaza, you know, and it's being continued by our new sheriff, created the scout team to basically, he saw the benefit of that. And, you know, it's early, but, you know, preliminary indications are that's a benefit to this county. So, you know, I think the rural counties, you know, can look at that as sort of, you know, I mean, I understand their concern. It's not one size fits all, doesn't always work, but I don't think it's incompatible with the needs of a rural county to have crisis response resources available and behavioral health navigators. Maybe they're, you know,
Not to the scale, but.
not to the scale, right? Like they can't, the cost is high. So that's interesting. I guess you know, I don't really have a problem with that ask. One thing that came up this morning in the meeting was that some of the money, so there's been, apparently they're like last night, there was some strikers or whatever they call it. I don't know all the process, but there's been like 11th hour changes where things are on that bill 5536. And like, you know, they mentioned that some of the things that have happened over the last week or so is that a lot of the funding for certain elements that were in the bill, including LEAD and stuff, were taken out, and like medication assisted treatment and some other things that were a little more tangential to the core of the Blake fix bill. But then somebody else, maybe it was Joe Avalos, I can't remember, but somebody who seemed knowledgeable and was tracking it said that's expected to be put back in during the budget process. So even though LEAD money was extracted from the bill, it's expected to go back in when they pass the budget, how that works. So that's what I thought you were gonna say, is that we were gonna be concerned about some of the money being taken out. But it sounds like this request from WASAC's pretty narrow, just about
Yeah, it's pretty narrow.
wanting to support this study of the data on the effectiveness.
And I think when they took the money out, I think you're right on point, because they're gonna make it necessary to implement the budget, this bill. So it takes away the allocation of funding at the bill level. I think that's the strategy that is behind those amendments.
But the first thing that caught my ear was, you know, are we counting on some of that funding, you know, for our lead program? But then later on, they said, no, that's expected to come back into it just later.
They started to implement the budget.
So I don't know, you know, it sounds like this is different. This is just about supporting the data.
Supporting and creating a data, so basically making a data-driven decision-making process. That's what.
If he was swayed by that, then that's, sounded like that was good.
This one's changing all the time,
It's hard to
And-
craft these responses to bills that like are literally changing day by day.
day by day, and I've received, I mean, I brought the AOC the thing because that was what it was last time. It was who was gonna get out the money, and it was a fight between, is it gonna be AOC again, or is it gonna be like Department of Commerce, or is there gonna be another entity that's gonna come in? So that was the struggle last time, so that's why I kind of mentioned that, but yeah, this one's about lead. So yeah, this one has changed quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised by the time we draft the letter if it's changed again. It's one of those bills that is hot, and it's.
Yeah. It's a lot of interest though.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring up, I got asked yesterday to sign in support of this bill, and I spoke with the county manager about it. And it's House Bill 1525. Extra copies. And it's for childcare. I had asked the county manager, you know, I know childcare is a big topic right now. It's something that, you know, I've been working on as well, but, you know, in conversations with the county manager, we're not sure if Thurston County will qualify since it's state, is it state permitted?
This bill provides the Department of Commerce to provide up to 12 months of childcare enrollment for those.
Childcare what?
Childcare enrollment. For those individuals who are part of this state registered apprenticeship program. So there is a well-defined apprenticeship program I have not been tracking this bill because it doesn't have a relation to the county. The county really is not a registered apprenticeship program with the state. But yeah.
I was asking him if maybe Lacey Makerspace was a registered apprenticeship program. Or if there was another place in Thurston County that was, just because we're really facing issues with childcare, and if there is a program that is registered under the state, I thought it would, you know, it's always a benefit to make sure that we're supporting anything having to do with childcare. So we're still finding out if there is. I have sent an email to Michael Cade from the EDC to see if he knows if there's any of them. So that was just, I wanted to give the commissioners a heads up. And this is something that you know, if I receive that information back, I'll probably sign on in support. And maybe if the commissioners are okay with it, then I can sign us on as a board.
If I may, I think the underpinning of this bill is to provide additional support to childcare, regardless of the circumstances. And I believe the board has been very proactive and see how you can probably support those efforts. It may not be applicable to the county directly, but certainly will be applicable to address the overall childcare issues that we're dealing with. So my recommendation, if I may, is for the board to consider full support of this.
What is the criteria to be eligible?
For to be registered.
Yeah, I mean, if we've got childcare operations all around the county, at different levels.
It's on page 3.
Yeah.
You have to have, to be a state registered apprenticeship program where you have a household income that does not exceed 75% of SMI at the time of
Low income.
application.
Is there a dollar amount with that, or?
You get up to 12 months and receive benefits for up to 12 months of enrollment.
And is this the individual site itself or the
Individual-
participants in the
individuals-
site
Individuals.
that are going to childcare?
Yeah, they are participating within this apprenticeship program.
It's through this Working Connections Child Care Program, a federally and state-funded program that provides child care subsidies. So you basically qualify for child care subsidies that then you could pay probably any private child care provider with.
It's true.
Well, like the one down in Rochester is just now getting going. We've been working on that for 2 years. And I think it's all permitted and everything's done now. But I don't know if it's up and running yet. Is that an example of?
They can accept these.
They undoubtedly have the income
Yeah.
problem down there.
Yeah, so,
So do we get in touch with these folks, or they all know about it, or?
so basically, the people who qualify for this, they have to be in an apprenticeship program, right? So, and it has to be like state qualified. So that's why I was trying to find out if there are any here in Thurston County that kind of fall under this, because
How would we know? I guess.
I contacted Michael Cade from the EDC and asked him if he knew of any of them. And I haven't heard back from him yet, but whoever's in this program, they basically, if they have an AMI of 60%, so, which is 4,274 maximum monthly income for a family of 3, I guess, and I think they're trying to, then they would qualify for this program.
This bill has passed.
It's already passed. I got an email yesterday for it.
One chamber is waiting for the other one.
It says that it passed the Senate chamber on April 8th.
So, strange, I got an email about it,
Oh.
asked to sign on and support.
So is the House passed this one, I assume? Because there's a House bill, so moved to the Senate passed it. So if that is the case, going to the governor,
Yeah.
so it's a moot point.
It may need to go to the House to concur with amendments.
Okay, maybe that's kind of why they're asking people to sign on. Yeah, I just got this email yesterday morning asking me to sign on board, and so I'm just like, okay, well, let me talk to the board first.
It says Senate passed third. On
96-0.
April 8th. It's, yeah, with a huge
Seems popular.
margin.
Senate 3612.
I'm good with it. I just don't know if it's gonna make a benefit or not.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I'll reach out to the email I got and ask about it. And if it's something that has to be reapproved, then I'll just,
You've got our concurrence to support.
okay, I'll sign on, the board on it. Okay.
I got a comment and a question before we leave. Did you have more legislative update? Okay, so the comment was that we were all tracking that juvenile point, and we learned this morning at Innovative Justice that the retroactivity.
The retroactive was taken out, which that was a good deal.
Kind of a little bit of a.
So that makes it a very good bill.
Makes it a good bill, for sure. And then, I just wanted to, the question was for you, County Manager, do you have an update on the property tax one?
No, it continues to be part of the conversation that's necessary to implement the budget, so that conversation will occur after this week.
Okay.
And what's the bill number on that? Do you remember?
Yeah, so, right here. Because you called me on the spot.
Let's see here.
It's not in this, it was taken out by mistake, so I'll get the bill number.
$16.70 is what my notes from.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
From our last June city.
Yeah, that sounds correct. It's not included here. We'll add it, because that was determined to be necessary to implement the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Robin, tell us where it was at, or is that what you were doing?
This bill never made it out of the original committee, but if someone's saying that they may consider it as a bill necessary to implement the budget, that would be.
That's a need committee. It just goes directly on the budget conversations.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to briefing public hearing decisions pending. And this is request for additional improvements, MOU. It's the third time this is coming.
Yeah, this is just a final decision point for you commissioners. This is there has been requests by offices and departments here in the atrium to do additional improvements beyond to what we have already provided and beyond the budget ability that you have established for all the improvements here at the atrium. It's an avenue. This MOU will sign at this point is with the chair of the board with any elected office who would like to exercise this. And does a couple of things. They will agree to cover any expenses within their own budget authority this year. And also outlines that they will not be coming back to us, the board, for a budget amendment to cover those expenses. That's in gist of this MOU. The three commissioners have heard this before, so I'm asking you to yea or nay.
I'm okay with the MOU as a compromise.
I don't know.
It's a no for me.
I think I'm staying with the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner items. First one is uncalled consultants from Public Works.
Yeah, this is an item that will be coming to you as an AIS, and this is related to the on-call consultants. The Public Works uses, and this is when we hire consultants for a specific areas of expertise that perhaps the department doesn't have. It comes every so often. And obviously the cost of, we went through our request proposals and staff is gonna walk you through what that is. And we have, I believe, 1 year option of extension on the current RFPs, but also as a cost increases because the cost of doing business increases as well. So I just want to give you a heads up, and you will see an AIS for you to exercise your decision later on. Karen, Rick, who's going to take the lead?
I think Rick's in the room. I think he's going to take the lead. Thank you.
So thank you, commissioners. We are looking to increase the funding limit for 6 of our on-call consultant contracts. This is not an item that will increase the budgets at all. This just simply allows us to order additional task orders against the existing contracts using funding that's already been approved.
Oh, yes. I think it's in here.
We're right now in the third year of our option years. This was a total of.
Thank you. Thank you.
2 base years to begin with, starting in 2018. And we're now just over halfway through the third year of our base contract. And as Ramiro indicated, we will be issuing the final option year in July of this year. So this 6-year contract will complete the middle of 2024. So what we are asking for, again, is just an increase in the limit so that we can continue to provide design, construction, administration type of work for the ongoing projects we have in Public Works with our transportation and bridges, solid waste program, our parks program, stormwater, our utilities, basically all the capital projects that we have going on. These consultant contracts support us quite substantially for doing pre-design studies so that we can better determine what costs will be for the design and actual construction of our projects. And to just give a little indication as to the impact of this contract over time, in 2018, we had 8 construction contracts awarded, and for the last 3 years, we've been averaging about 17. So we've been able to double the amount of construction contracts we've been able to do since we've implemented the on-call task orders here. I really want to emphasize that this is just a supplement to our Public Works design team and construction team. They still do a lot of design work in-house. This helps a lot when it comes to specialty types of consultants that we need for certain parts of our project. And it also does help with some of the larger complex projects where we just simply don't have enough staff to do all of the projects that we would like to do on our CIP. So again, we're just looking to be able to increase 6 of the consultant contracts for a total of $1.8 million. And I believe that will bring us up to just over $12 million total. Overall. So if there are any questions?
Perhaps with this request, by increasing the cap, is what it does is increasing the capacity. It doesn't mean that each firm will get that limit. It's just increase the capacity in which Public Works can exercise the specific tasks. And today I'm not asking the board to take an action, it's just to give you a perspective. And the department will bring an AIS for you to consider a formal action on this.
I might add one last item to this. The dollars that we're asking for increases, there is specifically projects behind these. So the dollar increases that you see here are based upon a projection of projects that we have for the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Each one of these that are shown here, like, I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark here. HDR, is that kind of over solid waste? Is that where we use those folks?
Solid waste, and also they're doing
Fish passage, roads, they do.
They're involved in fish passage as well?
It is a very large firm that has a lot of expertise.
What do these other groups, I mean, I don't recognize the acronyms on it.
KPG, for example, they do primarily construction administration, although they do some specialty design work such as the restrooms we've been doing for the parks. HBL has kind of a niche in stormwater types of design. OTAC, their specialty is really more along roads and bridges. Herrera Environmental, they're the ones who did, for example, the flare work and the SCADA work out at the wharf. They've also been one of the consultants we've used for the pump systems out there. And they have done other stormwater types of designs for us. KPFF has done a variety of different projects, including some fish passage, They've worked with us on the expansion of Rainier Rochester drop boxes, and have also been working on the pumps project out at the Wark. And then HDR, they pretty much have done everything that we do: solid waste, fish passage, roads, specialty studies.
When we do something like you mentioned, there sounds like there's overlap on some of these outfits that can do a little bit of everything. When that's the case, do we get a bid when they've got the possibility of two or more of these groups? Then do we go to bid if they're all capable to do whatever we're asking?
We, by law, we cannot go out and have them bid. There are occasions where we will have them provide us a qualifications document, or I will say an approach as to how they will do the project. But by state regulation, they have to be a negotiated contract.
How do we select who we're gonna go with a particular issue? So you mentioned fish on a couple of these or something, so how do we select winners and losers, or what's the deal? The best qualified group in our estimation?
Sometimes the answer to that is yes. Other times, there are multiple firms that can do the same work that we want to do. And in that case, we'll send out what I would call kind of a mini RFP, request for proposal, just to those couple that are within the group. And we ask them to provide us a brief outline as to how they would approach the project, how they would staff the project, and those types of things. And so we would do a mini evaluation in order to determine which one of those firms would be the most qualified to do the project that we're wanting to complete.
If this increase was authorized, then does that mean we're going to spend that dollar amount, or maybe we will not spend that dollar amount?
It
But
just,
it's
it just raises the capacity.
So it's the capacity of,
If perhaps in one of those rooms, if we don't need those services, we will not be utilizing that capacity.
So
maybe just a quick history on this. This is the third time that we've come to the board asking for an increase. We've typically tried to do it on about a 2-year cycle, because that's where we have the best estimate in regards to the projects that are closest to needing to be executed that are on the CIP. We deliberately did not want to try to project out 6 years and come to the board and ask for $15 million cap. And so what we have done is every couple of years come back to the board to ask to increase so that it can match up closer to what we project the actual projects are that we're going to be working on.
But you couldn't do that anyways, because after this 1-year extension.
That's correct. This is the last
A
one.
new request for proposals
Exactly.
to give any other firms the opportunity to participate in the county business.
That's correct.
So.
That's right. As a matter of fact, we are planning to, send out a new RFP this summer or I should say this fall, in order to prepare for the replacement of this contract that we presently have. And that will allow, again, any firm who wants to participate to apply, and we'll go through a selection process as we did about 5 years ago to select a new group of consultants to work with going into the future.
you know, with a lot of the things that we're doing, we end up saying, well, that's inflation, or that's the cost of doing business. Is that what we're up against here as well? Is this reflective of inflation, the overall cost of doing business? What's the deal? Is there a percentage that goes with each one of these, or is it a general percentage for all of them?
It literally is based upon a projection of specific projects that we have on our plan for the next 2 to 3 years. I will say that every year that we exercise a new option, we do get and negotiate with each one of the consultants a new basically labor rate with them, as well as get an updated indirect cost overhead rate that's audited by the state. So every year that we exercise that option, we make sure that we have the most current labor rates and their overhead rates that are used to negotiate the contracts.
I guess, the price of lumber is going down, just because building's slowing down. So are we granting an additional potential for additional expenditure when in reality, if the economy slips some, it might be less, you know, and then how do we benefit from that? I mean, if we do this every 2 years, you say?
Approximately.
Roughly?
Yes. Again, this is just for our consultant services, not for.
Right, I know, I'm just using the lumber as an example, but there are gonna be more folks available to do the consulting thing as well if they're not tied up on numerous other projects.
It's true.
Yeah.
I would say one of the advantages to having an on-call contract like this is that as the economy does go up and down, this gives us leverage to be able to use consultants to help us do more work so that we can spend the money that we need to really get the services out to the community. If the economy goes the other direction and there's not as much money for construction, it allows us then to, I'm gonna say, not use the consultants, not put out as many projects, but those projects would primarily be done with our in-house staff rather than through our consultant staff. So we've positioned ourselves in such a way that our in-house staff is stable, regardless of kind of the ups and downs of the economy. It's the consultants that are the ones that we are using to, I'm gonna say, flex with the amount of money that we actually have available to do construction.
That's it for me.
You said that the amounts that are in the chart are proposed are based on specific projects that you have dialed up.
Yes.
But then in the next section of the memo, you say that the reason to do this is because number 2 and number 3 were to be positioned to address new projects associated with federal government infrastructure. And number 3, respond quickly to emergency events. So do we need to give you more authority than this, since the money you're proposing is already connected to specific projects and not these contingencies?
No, that's a very good question. I should clarify a little bit on the specifics. We have included what I would call a contingency in these numbers that we're asking for to, I'm gonna say, to hedge our bet should we get some additional funding. And also if we do have any emergency projects that come up. Yes. And I guess the last thing to mention on this, and this is really getting down into the details, but the AIS and the approval would also allow the Public Works Director the ability to increase these cap amounts by, I think we had either 10 or 20%. 10%. Should there be any other really larger project that came up or a bigger emergency project than we would typically find. So that would allow us a little bit more flexibility to not have to come back to the board unless something really dramatic happened.
You know, the range of increase is anywhere from 10% to 35%.
Yes.
And why is that? Why is that being bumped up so much for one but not so much for the other, or what? I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
Again, it's based upon the projection of the projects, and I can give one example. One would be KPFF, for example. They are the best suited to do the ARPA projects out at Tamasham, and Boston Harbor? Yes.
Boston Harbor.
So they're gonna be looking at doing the design work for that. So again, the additional money that you see there is percentage-wise certainly larger than the other ones, but those are really two relatively significant projects.
How much much are we talking about doing, using like Tamasham, Boston Harbor, or what? How much of an upgrade are we talking about doing out there on those?
I don't know all the details to that, Commissioner. From what I understand, it's fairly significant for upgrading most of the mains, the water mains and sewer.
Those are the ARPA funds, and the board allocated $3.5 million of ARPA funds to do those projects.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like we're capping it out at
This is just engineering.
2 million. Yeah, I know, but if it's 2 million for engineering and that isn't gonna leave much more to do the physical work.
No, and again, this is not just a single project that these outfits will do.
And these are caps.
These are caps.
Okay.
The work for a particular project could be significantly less.
And these could come from a number of funds.
That's right.
Depending on the,
Depending on the project.
Road fund, the solid waste fund, the utilities funds, yeah.
Exactly.
It all depends on the project.
I mean, I'm just curious about the amount of the increase being so much in some and not so much in others. It's,
And that is based really directly upon the projected projects that we're planning to do in the next 2 years.
Why isn't this on, you're gonna bring this forward at a later time?
Yeah, we'll bring an AIS. Just wanna give you a heads up. Well, the thing, we had scheduled a briefing this week, and we don't have a quorum this week, so I wedged this item on your consent agenda, and on your agenda this morning.
So maybe to Commissioner Edwards' point, when an AIS is brought up, maybe kind of listing out, not all the projects, of course, but like some
Example.
examples of some of the projects that each of the firms is gonna be working on. Just that way we can have an overall picture on kind of the funding and maybe why some firms need a bigger cap than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, next is the HCP implementation.
Yeah, I believe the last Tuesday, Commissioner Mejia and Commissioner Edwards had a conversation on the HCP and the implementation. So I asked Josh and his team to come and give a little brief update as to where we are on the implementation of the HCP.
Great, thank you, County Manager. Hello, Commissioners. I think what I want to do is, I am Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Here with me today is Brett Burris, our Development Services Manager. Given we're relatively short on time, I want to go quickly but not bury the headline. Friday, April 7th, we sent an email to all those folks that were waiting due to the need for this permit process to be in place, and asked them to schedule a voluntary meeting to come in and discuss their project because we have launched the Habitat Conservation Program permit process. As of yesterday afternoon, April 10th, we issued our first permit. It's called a Certificate of Inclusion. So this is 5 years in the making and a big deal. So that's the headline, is that we have launched and we have begun and we've issued our first permit. The permit looks like this. So when folks provide that, this needs to be recorded to the auditor's office. And it's a big win, it's a success. But I'd like to then go back to kind of build the case to how we got here and where we're headed next. So first off, I wanted to say thank you. There's 3 main phases that we need to keep in mind. The first phase was the policy phase. And that's where you saw Chris Chapeau come in for the past 5 years or so as the Board of County Commissioners provided guidance on working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to receive this permit, the incidental take permit from the federal government, so that then Thurston County could turn around and issue these specific permits to our folks developing in the community. And that took 5 years. And the board completed that process with the codes and ordinances that you passed in December. And so huge thanks to community planning for their work. I'd like to demonstrate the work that they created actually won a Washington State Award in planning in the combination of protecting the natural environment while allowing development to occur for homes and businesses. This is a big deal. And the codes and ordinances that you passed and that the community planning worked on won this state award, and we're applying also for a federal award in terms of planning. This is the balance between protecting the environment and allowing for development. This is in my office, pass it around, maybe we'll just pass it around right now. There you go. So that policy piece, phase one, you all completed, the Board of County Commissioners with Community Planning's work at the end of 2022. The next phase is the planning and logistics phase. I committed to a stretch goal of having the planning and logistics phase completed in Q1 of 2023 so that we could launch the program. As I just relayed, we launched it April 7th, so it missed my stretch goal by 7 days. But I think that we're in a good path going forward. That planning and logistics phase required that we have consistent plan review. So we created a director guidance memo that has been reviewed by legal counsel so that all of our planners are providing the same input to folks that apply for permits with the board's direction of allowing applicants to do what they want with their property within code and ordinance. And so to help the planners all provide that consistent review, we created the director guidance memo, which we're implementing now. We also partnered with information technology, IT, to set up the mechanics of providing the permits. It takes a lot of work to get the Amanda system, the A6 system, to spit out the right numbers so that folks have the correct fees. And I appreciate the work that they did. We've also partnered with the auditor's office to make sure that this document can be recorded appropriately. There's all sorts of margin requirements that we needed to meet. So that's done. That took 3 months. So 5 years for the policy, which you completed at the end of the year in 2022. 3 months for the planning and logistics, which we've just completed. And like I said, that brings us up to current date. We are now issuing permits. I think that we're up to 20 voluntary appointments for people to come in, and we will assist them with the process of avoid, minimize, mitigate. So avoid, if they're able to not build on gopher soils, on the habitat soils, it's $0 for the habitat conservation permit. If they can minimize, and we'll help them with that process, and they show up, it's called the best management practice checklist. We need to be able to show the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that they have minimized to the greatest extent possible and that they followed the checklist. And then we attach that to their permit, because every year for the next 5 years, we will have a review by the federal government to ensure that we are meeting our permit requirements to the federal government so that we can keep that permit, the ITP, that allows us to provide permits to the community. And then, what was the last thing? Sorry, I was on a roll there. Avoid, minimize, mitigate, and then mitigate is the fee that's created. So there is an initial application fee. It's the least expensive fee that we have to process the application. It's called the other administrative fee, and that is $216. So they pay that up front, and then we help them with the process to get to the mitigation fee. And then once they get to the end of their permit process, all the other building and land use items, then they'll pay the mitigation fee. So that's based upon the size of the area that they impact. And like I said, we did it yesterday. It's not flipping a switch. It's turning on a jet engine that we've never fired up before. So it's not gonna be perfect right out of the gate, but it's happening. And every time we're gonna do the next one, we're gonna learn more. I know you're receiving input that we have been on hold. We have been accepting information this entire time and putting the line together. We did have a communication gap with some of our frontline employees that said that we weren't accepting anything. We've closed that communication gap and want to make sure that you all, the Board of County Commissioners, knew that we are launched and taking applications and issuing permits. So beginning to end, it's happening.
Are you recontacting applicants as part of this process that had put in prior to this?
Sorry if I talked too fast. That was the Friday, April 7th email that we sent out to the 94 folks that had been on hold with projects. So we recontacted all those folks and said, we're ready, please schedule an appointment so we can help you process your permit, get you going.
Have you put out a news release to this effect?
Have this conversation with the elected officials, you leaders first.
Is that in the thought process of possibly doing so? Is there any thought, maybe this would be to my seatmates, that because this is new so we can get a sense of how it's progressing. Maybe in a month or so, you can come back and tell us, hey, we had 47 issues solved or permitted or whatever. Kind of give us an update, maybe for the first couple of months of implementing this program, so we could kind of be advised and stay on top of it. And then maybe after that, we can adjust that, or something to.
That sounds great.
Keep us informed, because we're gonna be getting a lot of questions about this.
I think you're already have.
Yeah, well, I know we have, and I'm hoping we're rectifying those, I'm hoping, so, anyway.
We're learning as we go.
On the land acquisition piece of this whole thing, can you remind me how many different like sub areas there are that are, that are separate from each other that we have to acquire? We have those bar graphs.
Service areas.
Yeah, how many service areas do we have?
5.
And that, out of those 5, are there anywhere we're goose egged and we can't issue a permit because we haven't acquired any?
We have one that we need that's in process, but at this point, we don't know how much capacity within these projects we need. That's what the meetings are for. So we're not sure if we can't issue a permit yet. We do have the need to acquire land in one service area a little more to start the process.
Okay, well, that's a positive update from, I think, where we were. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it
Heard about it, which was probably 6 or 9 months ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a goose egg. I'd call it there's a shot in the air.
Yeah. That's on the least, and all the other ones.
Gonna be a whoosh or a bounce.
Sorry, no question.
The other 4 areas, there's been land acquired.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, there's land available for the permits, so, I mean, not to get too deep in the details, especially without Chris Chapeau here, but YPG South can be used for 2 of the other service areas as well. This is, sorry.
So, I guess from my point of view, looking back, I think these are meetings that we should have really had. Because when we made the final decision, coming from the side of the commissioners, I remember the end of January 2023 deadline. I don't remember Q1. And the message that, I mean, for me, at least for myself, that I've been getting out to the community is we're open for business, right? If you've been waiting, come in and apply. And what I'm hearing from you is basically it was come in and hold until we're done implementing the process and getting everything in check. And then now we're gonna start really processing it and going through the system. And so I feel like it's been a communication gap from CPED and the commissioners as well.
Sure.
And so I'm in agreement with Commissioner Edwards in having those check-ins. Because as we're relaying this information out to the community, we want to be sure that we're giving them the right information. And if it's something where, it is taking some time to implement, which is, absolutely normal, I think it was something that we should have known. So in terms of that, I'm glad that at least we have our first applicant approved and ready to go. And hopefully, we'll keep oiling the machine and we'll get more updates in the following month.
Would you like to have monthly updates? Will that be adequate for the board?
I would prefer that we at least have some monthly updates for a couple months.
For a couple of months, right, just as the program is starting and
That's great.
not from now forward, but just at least for a couple of months while the program's being implemented and
Maybe we can probably take it all the way to the fall, every month. That will give you a good sense as to the rate of processing those permits.
We're open. Like I've said, we have been accepting information. We were building that line. We're not able to go get them all the way through the line. If there was a communication gap, I
We see
apologize.
that,
But I'm open.
you
What do you
didn't
want,
pass
what do you
it
wanna see?
around. Yeah, that thing.
We'll provide copies to the board.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good, just.
That's got personal information on it.
Well, even that, what's it hurt?
It's not, it's a public record.
Public record, so.
But again, we had never stopped accepting information. We needed to build this list to understand the projects. Now we're ready to issue the permits, and we're doing it. So this is, again, this is a big win for the county. 5 years in the making. Thank you for your support. Huge success. People said we weren't gonna be able to do it, and we did it. Anything else, commissioners?
I guess, one of the things I'd like to hear as we go forward is what would have this cost a few years ago, whatever? Besides not being able to do it at all, what would the cost be, and what is the cost now?
Well, you heard from Jan Tivetan during the.
Yes,
previous
and
year.
that kind of sparks this question.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of why I'm asking. The crazy amount of time lost and cost and.
He projected to you, the Board of County Commissioners, that he believes his sunk cost on that whole process, getting his own HCP, was upwards of $100,000. All the time spent, all the reviews, all the consultants, all of the mitigation costs, that is much greater than the permit cost.
Significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
So the next item is Harlequin Productions, and so this was my request to add on. So I received this letter from Harlequin Productions, and it's a budget request. My recommendation for this is to add this to the budget amendment ask, and with the possibility of different options for funding, if any, if it's just general fund, then, you know, it's something that, and so, yeah.
So this letter appears to be requesting the same type of funding as used for the Washington Center. And that was ARPA funding. And we can assume, under the Recovery Act rules, that nonprofits in the tourist and entertainment industry are presumed harmed by ARPA. And these theaters, both the Washington Center and the State Theater, are in a district, forget the title of the disabled. Disadvantage, thank you, that's the right word, district. So should the board want to make the same type of donation, we could certainly use ARPA recovery funds.
So but can we talk about this when we do the budget amendment?
Sure.
Is that okay with commissioners? That way we can have all the figures and numbers, or even at our next ARPA conversation.
Sounds like maybe it goes into that.
If ARPA would be the money, then we definitely make it part of the next ARPA review.
Okay, then let's do ARPA. If it's not budget amendment, then ARPA.
Yeah, I would not support this if it's not ARPA connected, but I'd likely to if it is.
We
And
absolutely
so
could do it under
I
the
prefer to have it in that
same
conversation.
assumptions as.
I thought we had most of that ARPA money, dedicated, committed or something.
The vast majority is, but you have $1 million that is unrestricted or unearmarked at this time.
You do have capacity in that.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would recommend that you take it out of the unearmarked million.
Have they been having ongoing productions?
Oh, they were shuttered for quite a while due to COVID.
Back to work now?
I think they're back up.
They are back, yep, performances are back.
Any,
You know, I think in this theater, they're showcasing one of our courthouse plaques.
from that brass thing or something?
Historical, okay.
How much has Olympia been putting in? We'll discuss all that later.
Yeah,
Good.
I was just,
Good
so
deal.
that way, because we have a closed session, just wanted commissioners to take a look at the letter and then bring it forth at the next ARPA conversation. Okay, before we go into executive session, is there other commissioner items? I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Deschutes Watershed Council ask. And I'm looking at Commissioner Menser because you were one of the ones you were the one who brought this forward to add into kind of the shared legislative agenda. And they didn't get their earmark, and I got a call asking why, and I really couldn't really answer that question. So I asked Deborah Munguia, and Deborah didn't have really any information on it either, and she was confused on their ask, honestly. And so not sure if this is something where Commissioner Messer, you could provide her a little bit additional information. I was honestly at a loss, right? I was trying to kind of explain from my notes when we had that conversation on what the actual ask was. And now it's a little too late anyways, but we were discussing of maybe like, you know, next year, it's like, what is the groundwork for this, especially if it's gonna be again in the shared legislative agenda, and so just, I guess, asking for additional information from you, Commissioner Menser.
Okay, well, I don't know what happened in the terms of the ask. I met with Jessica Bateman before session to kind of show her what this was about and kind of educate her and get her to support. It didn't come up too much during the legislative sessions that I had with different legislators. We didn't really focus on that piece in terms of our priorities. We had, they give you 15 minutes and we were focused on several other things. So I don't really know what happened. I know there were some legislative meetings with the group that's working on it, and I wasn't included. Once session started, I only was part of that initial session with Jessica Bateman, the LD 22 representative. But I'm certainly happy to engage in terms of strategizing about how to make this more effective for next year.
Yeah. County Manager.
So the item they related to this, it was on the support overall. It wasn't one of the priorities the board had.
Yeah.
So, and it was to support
A regional ask.
a regional ask of 250,000. So, and I think that's what the softness of the approach was. We introduced that to the legislators, and all of you participated on that, and we asked to see anyway. So if becomes this a priority next year, then I think we need to go through the process of identifying where the ask is. If it's capital or any other funding source, then we can work on that direction, because as it is, it was soft.
Yeah, and the call I got was asking kind of why, if I knew why the legislature, and I was like, I don't know.
I don't either,
And
frankly.
I was like, I know a lot of our
The
requests
reason
didn't
is
go
because
through.
the legislators didn't have really a foundational understanding as to what the $250,000 is going to do.
So, and
Well, there's, we have the three major river in our county. And the Nisqually has the Nisqually River Council, and the Chehalis has the Chehalis Basin Partnership. That's been, a watershed planning group for years. Deschutes doesn't, and it runs right through the middle of our county. It runs right into, Capitol Lake, and, we've got, a lot of development. We have agriculture activity, and we have forestry activity. Kind of a whole range of activities that go up and down the water, the river. So, and it was a key, it was an unanimously agreed component of our watershed plan, but because of other things, the watershed plan didn't get approved. So, it's really, to the extent that I'm advocating for it, it's basically just saying that, this is kind of a missing piece. We've really not had this council, and it makes a lot of sense for all the different things that we're trying to do, water quality, water quantity, the Stream Flow Restoration Act stuff, all the different stakeholders. But then analogizing to, like, you know, and it's before my time, but I'm told that the legislature did allocate some seed money for the Nisqually River Council. It might not have been 250,000 or whatever, but it was enough to get it going. And they're looking for something to get this going.
I think next year we'll have to probably more strategic on the specific appropriation. That's what we're looking, and again, here, it was pretty soft. It was pretty soft, and that's the result of.
Yeah. And I didn't have enough information. I know Deborah asked me a follow-up questions and I didn't have enough information on it.
You can refer to me, I mean, like I say, I don't know the answer to the specific question, but when it comes to
Yeah.
like strategizing for next year and stuff, I'm happy to.
And I told her that, I was like, I know Commissioner Menser, I was like, this wasn't something that Commissioner Menser kind of brought up because he had been in that meeting and I was like, I have my notes and that's kind of.
The way it started was stakeholders from the stream, you know, you guys know what I'm talking about, the Stream Flow Restoration Act plan, the Hearst Fix plan, that the building industry of Washington, you know, pulled their support for at the last minute, so it went to ecology.
Right.
Because it has to be by consensus. But all the stakeholders that were at that table for 2 years came to me in the wake of that failure of the approval of the plan and said, hey, the Deschutes Watershed Council, everybody agreed on that. That was like non-controversial. Why can't we just do this anyway? Everybody thought that was a good idea. And so that's where we started to think about, well, maybe we need to go to the legislature. Would the tribe host it? Would the county be able to be, you know, nobody was really felt like they had the capacity to stand it up. So the question was, could we go to legislature, do what the Nisqually River Council did and kind of get some seed money to stand it up with some consultants or whatever?
One of the ways probably, as part of that conversation, as I recall, it was the Squaxin Island tribe. Perhaps also be an active role.
Well, that was a suggestion, but I don't know that they took.
So maybe this will be something that we can probably work on that, because in the Nisqually River Council, the Nisqually tribe takes an active role on that. And here perhaps the Squaxin Island tribe could probably take an active role in formation and managing of this.
But for the Nisqually seed money, wasn't that for the actual implementation of the plan that they submitted?
No, this is way back in the day when I'm talking about.
The formation of the council
The
itself.
formation of the Nisqually River Council, which has been around, Commissioner Edwards probably knows, forever, a long time.
Okay, so.
So this is kind of way back.
It's the formation
Maybe
of the
there was
council.
there was maybe that disconnect where it wasn't really clear on what the ask was.
And in Chehalis, to bring it to that part of the county, you know, the Hearst Fix involved an additional well fee that Ecology collected, or an additional, well fee, I think it was. And the Chehalis Basin Partnership tried to apply for that. That money's just sitting there, and it's by watershed. It's got to go back to the watershed. So we tried to apply and say, you know, to keep this group alive, to get these projects implemented, we're the implementing body basically for the plan. And Ecology said no, they wouldn't give it to us because it has to be for a specific project. And it can't just be for kind of general administration
Right.
costs, whatever. And that's
Which
Thurston County ended up kicking in 10,000, as did most of the other jurisdictions, to keep the Chehalis Basin Partnership supported. But we don't have that same structure in
There's not a
place for
structure, you're
the
right.
shoots.
Okay. Any other commissioner items?
I'll just to let the folks know that I did get appointed by the governor to the State Building Code Council.
Woohoo, congratulations.
Representing Western Washington counties.
Wow, okay, congratulations.
That's a good board to serve. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we'll go into a closed session for RCW 42.130, subsection 4A, collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, union contract status, and commissioner's action may follow. With that, we'll go.
Maximum 20 minutes, I will assume.
We're back from executive session. We were in a from closed session, I apologize. We were in closed session for RCW 42.30, 140, subsection 4A, collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining. Union contract status, no commissioner action follows this. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.